Hi, I'm Sophie Hannah.
Hi, Fairyqueen Tatiana.
Hiya, I'm Monah.
Hi, I'm Anissa, and welcome to episode 55 of Ethnically Speaking, the show where we discuss everything affecting the UK's highly melanated communities, from current affairs to pop culture and everything in between. We always keep it 100, and today we're talking all about the UK government squirreling in new laws. So, Boris Johnson and Priti Patel have been leading the way on the police, crime, sentencing and courts bill, which will restrict our right to protest during the pandemic if the demonstrations are likely to cause serious annoyance or serious unease. But rumour has it that the bill will extend beyond this period, restricting our general and previously free right to protest in the UK. Meanwhile, the government has also been voting through the Covert Human Intelligence Sources Bill, which will allow undercover officers to commit crimes such as murder, sexual assault, and torture in order to blend in with the criminals they keep tabs on and blowing their cover. Is the state justified in introducing these bills to keep us safe, or are they robbing us of our rights and allowing heinous crimes to be committed legally? And why aren't we hearing more about these controversial bills in the press?
I think it's just a mess in general, in my opinion. It's just a mess. Are they justified? I mean, sure, they're justified to bring any bill to the table. That's their job. They can bring anything, to be voted on. But I don't think that these bills, especially the protesting one, is for the good of the people. I think that has been brought in order to stop people protesting and to stop them having a right to expression and actual free speech for groups that they don't like, or things that might cause a nuisance, or things that might not reflect well on the government. In terms of the other bill that is going to potentially allow undercover agents to commit, murder, torture, I don't think the ends justifies the means. And I think that that's what that bill is saying. It's saying that whatever you do in order to bring about, bringing down a criminal or to bring about justice is okay. If it's a lesser crime, then, it's free game. And I completely don't agree with that. And I wonder, when will one person's life be enough? Like, you're saying that person who you might kill, that woman who you might rape, that person you might torture, that their life is worth trading for the bigger criminal. I'm like, what sort of message does that send? And I think lastly, in terms of the question, why aren't we hearing more about it? I think it's because the government doesn't want us to be protesting about these things. So it's easier for us to see 1,000 articles about Meghan Markle than to see what the government's doing with bills that are actually going to affect all of us individually. And if they bring light to it, then people are going to be up in arms or protesting, as they did in Bristol yesterday. And they don't want that sort of smoke, literally or figuratively.
I think I completely agree with what you're saying, Sophie, because I think that I'm going to be a little bit controversial here. And the reason that the protests happened in the beginning, because of Sarah's death, there's been such a long spell of investigating the police officer, and I've heard there's been talks of checking his mental health, and the whole thing has been very dragged out. But as soon as there's been a protest, how fast were they to pass a bill or have the conversation going about, oh, actually, I think that maybe protesting should be handled a bit differently? It's funny to see that you are more interested in policing the response than the actual getting to the nub of the problem, in my opinion. And I think the second half of police officers who are undercover being able to commit heinous crimes, I think the idea is absolutely barbaric. Like, aside from the victims of the point that you made about trading one's life, which is absolutely valuable, let's look at police officers. Now, if you have people who have fought in the army, Iraq, for example, they have severe mental disorders because of it, because of killing someone. I have an uncle who was actually in Iraq, and he's had sleep deprivation, mental health issues, a lot of after effects because of that. Imagine if a police officer was put in a circumstance where he didn't want to blow his cover and he had to do something to somebody. What would happen to him moving after that case? Yes, you've got the victim, but you also have the police officer too. What happens to him? Because that's trauma that is being elicited onto somebody else because of the nature of the job. And then also, in the same breath, if you think about murder, if you've murdered someone, now this is going a bit off like a heinous turn, if you've murdered someone and gotten away away with it because it's your job, could you arguably say that you've now got a taste for something and could see it? I think that it could probably draw the wrong applicants to the job if they felt that they were able to commit crimes and get away with it because of their title. I just think the whole thing is a mess, like you said.
Girl, you just bring up such interesting points.
Honestly.
I know, right? I saw Anissa was all like, yeah.
I was like, oh, yeah, okay.
A little bit too much CSI.
I know, because when you said you got a taste for it, I thought, yeah, that's real serial criminal language.
You know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? Because if you think some people apply for jobs and they have to go through so many tests to make sure that they're suitable for this role.
Yeah.
It's the same thing for being like a police officer. If there's now this whole pass of being able to do this, are they going to be able to take personality tests to make sure that the people who are doing this job are the right people for the job? And I don't think you could ever prepare somebody for something like that. What would they go through to be able to make sure that they're the person for the job? I just don't see it making any sense. It's not ethical.
Yeah, I think in response to Monah's the second bill, in my opinion, I think this is already happening, or it's already happened. But now they're trying to legally protect the people who are part of this. So I think it took a long time for this bill to be drafted and to be created and approved. However, I think now that more people are politically engaged and more aware of what's happening politically, I think they have to do things to protect officers who are involved and going undercover. So I think that's why they've had to put this bill in. And knowing what happens in institutions and how all these like legislation gets approved, I think it's a very long time. So it wasn't like, oh, suddenly they came up with this bill. But I think this is the opportunity for them to bring it forward and say, we're doing something about it. So I think that's why it's come now. And because people are very actively looking at, putting the government at account, so through freedom of expression, I think the government is now saying, okay, people are getting smarter, not as distracted by social media, because people are using social media in very different ways. I think it's gone more political since in the past year. And I think they're trying to avoid people to stand up and this whole excuse of social distancing. But I think they should really be working with protesters, because if we live in a state where we can't express ourselves in a safe manner, then we really lose our voice in our society, and we can't hold the government to account.
Yeah, when I first saw the first bill, which was the police crime, and I can't remember the other name of it, but when I first saw the first bill and I was reading into it, and they were doing it to help reduce the disruption that protests cause, that was just a bit like, that for me was just a bit contradictory, because for me, like, protests in their very nature are disruptive, but not in a bad way. They are disrupting policies or infrastructures or injustices that aren't right, like they're trying to shake it up and do something new. So to say that they were going to reduce it, that didn't make, like, for me, it just didn't, the language around it didn't make sense. Also, personally, I could be wrong, but I don't feel like we've had any protests in this country that have caused such mass destruction, such mass fatalities, such issues to warrant severe things as fines and 10-year sentences. Like, I really don't think we have, and I could have missed the mark on this, but I really don't think we have. So for me, it just was a bit strange. And I read that, they started thinking about this since 2019, when, these what they call it, Extinction Rebellion, I can't remember what their name is, that environmental group, when they had really started taking over London with a lot of their protests. So they had the seed had started planting, like they were thinking about it. And then obviously after BLM and all that kind of stuff, it really accelerated them wanting to make that bill. And the reason why I think we haven't heard about it in this press is, I think maybe, I don't know if I said it last week on here, or maybe I've just said it a lot in conversation. Me and my sister were talking about it. We were like, okay, all the Meghan Markle storm was happening. Then we moved on to the Sarah Everard storm. And me and Annalisa said, we're just waiting for Boris. We just felt it. I felt it in the air that Boris was planning and plotting and scheming and doing up everything, because for the last year, the British press and everyone just in society have had their foot on Boris's neck. The foot was taken off his neck for 2 weeks, enough for him to do up fandanglement and shenanigans. And of course, this has probably been in the work for longer than 2 weeks, but it was getting through quicker in these last 2 weeks because everyone's attention was off of it. And so that's why I feel like it's been able to get there. And just to add on to what Mona said, I agree. I think the whole bill about the undercover cops is incredibly barbaric. The taste for it doesn't make any sense. I don't understand why we would trade one life for another. And I feel like there's a way to be an effective undercover person without actually having to kill someone and be violent. Like, of course, I know you may have to prove yourself to the people that you're with. I mean, slap someone around. I'm not saying that's any better, but I'm saying slapping someone around is different from killing them. Do you know what I mean? Like, okay, maybe slap. Or why don't, this might blow your cover. I'm just one of those people who watch too many movies. But take the person to the back. Reason with them. Say, look, you know what? I don't want to kill you. They want me to kill you, but I don't want to kill you. So you need to figure out something to do so that we're both okay. Like, I feel like there's so many things you could do. Put the person in witness protection program. Like, there's so many things you could do before killing the person. Do you know what I mean? So those are my thoughts.
I think this is what makes it just so the government so shady and dishonest and immoral is the fact that the only reason these bills the reason why I think people are protesting is because it's getting to the point where these bills are going to become law. And the only reason, because it has to go through various steps before it gets to law. So it could have been like, people aren't going to pick up because you're like, well, we don't know how far this is, if it's going to go all the way. But with COVID, the government made these rules to say that they can get bills through faster during this period if they're in the interest of the public safety, public security, because they're like, these things can take months and months and months or years to enable to get to this stage. And that's why people are saying it's an abuse by the government, because now that this COVID law has been passed that we can rush things through without it going through Parliament, without the House, everyone having to sit, they are now trying to rush through things that normally wouldn't have gone through this fast or gone through at all. And I think it's just really an abuse, because when you have people like Priti Patel saying that she felt that the Black Lives Matter protests were disgraceful, and then the only grounds for the police getting more involved in the protest is going to be because if it causes annoyance or unease, I'm just like, it feels like it's going to go hand in hand with anti-racism protests. So it's causing annoyance. Someone's annoyed by it. Then the police need to come in and shut it down, or it's causing unease. I'm like, who's going to be grading that?
What is annoyance?
Grading the unease?
It's so subjective.
It's so broad.
Yeah,
exactly. And that's why I feel like the government is just going to use this to shut down voices that need to be heard that are talking about injustice.
Yeah, that's true. And I think also the first bill specifically gives more power to Priti Patel in this case, and also to police. So it's not really about the people, but it's to give more power to the people who are already in power and abusing power. Yeah. So I think that's part of the problem, because, you know, if they can decide who's annoying and who's not, then how can you justify that? It's just their perspective of who shouldn't be speaking. So it's a very dangerous line. I think I'm not the biggest fan of Theresa May, but she did put it forward in the House, and she just said we have to be careful being popular or populist. And I think it's just a question to the government. Why are you really doing this? But I think this is part of the whole plan. But unfortunately, we're just seeing the world going to a different direction in this transition of the pandemic.
I think the thing that makes me sad is that I remember, like, I've always been an advocate for protesting, and I remember I have been a part of the BLM protest. I was protesting for nurses and supporting staff in hospitals for their wage increase, all the way back to when they skyrocketed the tuition for university. Actually, I tell a lie, my first protest was when Michael Jackson died, and I came in dressed as Michael Jackson, and I almost got expelled, and I had to protest to why I felt that I was allowed to have a tribute to Michael Jackson. That was close to my heart, but honestly, I had to stick it to my teachers. My mum even had to back me up on that one.
I have so many questions about that, Mona, like all the questions.
My point is that being so young and knowing that there was something I could do about something I felt passionate, whether that was channeling my energy in the right direction or that my voice mattered, for the younger generation coming up, when you are in a protest, it's so powerful, because I know a lot of people sit and say, let's talk about the BLM protest, for example. If you feel so passionate about it, there's not really much that you can do. Protesting isn't going to do anything. When you are in those environments and you're standing there with your signpost and you're speaking to other people, it's really powerful and it's really profound. And you do feel like you're in a moment of history where you are making change. For that to be taken away because somebody else finds it to be annoying, something that is passionate to me might not be near and dear to somebody else. So imagine if I was going to take the voice away from, let's say, I don't know, animal rights protesters, for example. What makes my voice better than someone else's voice? And this is the message that we're passing on. to other people and also an impressionable young audience. So I'm just not here for it.
Yeah, I do have a question though, because having participated in protests myself, I do find that there is a group of people who are protesting, but there's also other people who are drawn to protest and come with a whole different agenda. So it's like, I think that's where the trouble lies. So hopefully, through this whole discussion of this bill, we can distinguish between who's protesting for the actual cause and who's coming with a completely different agenda. Because I remember one of the protests I went to for the tuition fee, we had a whole group of like anti-monarchy people. They were destroying the government building, this conservative building. And I was stood there, and then like the police would kind of shove me off. But I was like, I wasn't part of destroying the building. I'm here to say what I feel, but I'm not here for destroying things. So I think there's a difference between people who are going to protest because they want to express their voice and others come to destroy. So there's different people who are attracted to protest environments.
I think that's true, Tatiana.
Sorry?
No, go Sophie, go.
I was going to say, I agree with you, Tatiana, and I think that's what's happened in Bristol literally like yesterday with people protesting about the bill and then getting violent. The sad thing is that the government is going to use that as a way to justify even further why they need it. This is why we need to do it. Look, the police were hurt. It's played exactly into their hands, and I don't like that, but anywhere you go, there's going to be good people and people who have some sort of ulterior motive. In concerts, in house parties, at your workplace, there are people who are there to get the job done, and there are people there who you're like, that person is not serious, I need to stay away. We know this, but now I think it's really going to be used again as something else to justify why this law needs to come in. But I don't actually think there's any way around some people being at a process just to cause havoc.
Yeah. And I definitely think, but like, I think Bristol is a clear example. First of all, I think it, as you said, Sophie, rightly so, it was a narrative that kind of played into their reason, what they'll use to justify this bill. Like, I've already seen Boris and all these other people like saying how shameful and violent and horrific and calling the people their thugs. So I've already seen that already coming out in the media. And I think you will always have a group of people whose intention is to just cause chaos. Like, they just need the opportunity. They're coming to cause chaos. But I think we've also had a history in this country as well, in protest, of the police having plants within these protests and within these riots to egg people on or to incite some sort of violent behavior. So I would not be surprised. I'm not saying that they were there, but I would not be surprised if that there wasn't somebody there on the side in Bristol who was there encouraging and inciting things, because it all feels so timely to me. I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all, but it just feels so
come my
timely
conspiracy
to
queen.
me.
Come my conspiracy queen. You're on it today, Anissa.
The thing is, I'm not a conspiracy queen at all. Like, I hate conspiracy theories, but it just seems wildly timely of it for the first thing that all of a sudden the exact protest to go against about protest then turn violent, and then all of a sudden we've got police officers with punctured lungs and all things like that. And that I'm not taking away from what harm they did, but like, not even the BLM protest, quote unquote, had that level of violence, but the exact protest to protest the bill about the protest got violent. Like, that to me, just something in the milk just not dodgy there. That was just what I feel.
Anissa, maybe it's the undercover police.
It may be. Maybe. They can do what they want now.
True.
But
true.
Allegedly. We just want to make that very clear.
Just speculating. None of this is facts. It's just pure speculation.
The dirty cops.
But I also think, in terms of the police spy bill, the undercover spy bill, do you know, guys, because when I was reading up on it, they're saying it's not even really for police officers. So apparently, the agents who they get are normal people from the community, usually former criminals, because they're the ones who can infiltrate a gang. So this actually happened. They got a previous convicted paedophile who they use as an undercover agent to be able to go in and break into a paedophile ring, or to try and be one of them, to try and bring it down. And the government got into a lot of stick for it. But I think I don't know if it was the police or MI5, whoever, they said they stand by their decision. Now, something that Tatiana said was very true is that this has been going on already. They're just trying to pass the bill in order to kind of make it legit, so they can kind of cover their back for all the things that they've been doing. But I'm just thinking, what do you think about that? The fact that actually they're using previous criminals, because they're saying, A police officer who tries to join a drug ring, they're going to be like, who the hell are you? But if it's someone who's got street cred for it and they know, they're saying these are the people that they're looking to plant. And now you're having people who are convicted criminals of dangerous crimes. I'm not talking about stealing an iPhone from like the shop, which is a crime as well, but a paedophile who you're using to infiltrate a paedophile ring. So what are you going to say that he's okay to do in order to bring down the paedophile ring? Because this is where the rubber starts to hit the road and it gets very, very murky.
Yeah,
and this is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on, Tatiana.
No, I just have a big issue with paedophilia because as a mother, it really, it boils me because I watched a documentary about, I forgot her name, Madeleine McCann, and the private investigators, they had to, fit in this pedophilia ring and kind of investigate if there's any pictures of her. And the guy who did the investigation, he was very distraught and disturbed by just doing this work. And I don't think it's natural for any of us to be involved in such like evil crimes. And I'm not built for that, but I don't know anyone who can be built for that. Like Monah said, who is built to do all this evil stuff as a job? Like, I feel really bad about it. So I think it's very disturbing to encourage this kind of behavior in the name of an investigation.
Yeah, and this is what I mean about looking at different sides of the coin. I feel like if you were going off Sophie's example and you were putting a previous paedophile into a situation, basically, obviously he's a paedophile. I'm not saying that the situation presented itself and then he just took it. He was a paedophile, period. But if you're putting him in the same environment that he got sick in, expecting him not to slip up, you are tempting fate. That's not fair on the previous convict, because if it's too much, I'm pretty sure that they go to rehab and they have facilitations available to help them come out of their mental state. I'm not too sure. But wouldn't that be counterproductive and going against his own healing process? And then on top of that, even though it makes sense that you would get somebody who knows the system, the underground groups, it makes sense, but at the same time, there can't ever be no new recruit. Otherwise, you'd have like 8-year-olds sitting on the throne. Clearly, they have new people coming in and out. So wouldn't it make more sense to kind of have these people as like, maybe like a mentor, and show them the ropes and show them, okay, this is the head honcho, this is how you would move. If you're online, this is the way that you would move and this is what you would say. But to actually have them involved is sinister, because if they have this trait in them, even if they are doing something for a great cause, they're still getting pleasure from it because this is what they've been previously convicted for. It sounds so counterproductive and it makes no sense. What is the point in them going on registers and lists? So let's say you have a certain paedophile who is selected to be a part of this process. What makes him the best paedophile out of all of the paedophiles? How are you going to select the appropriate candidate? I'd like to know, what's the tests that they're going to go under? And it's like one gets applauded for being a paedophile, whilst another one gets put on a register, a sex offender, can't apply for these amounts of jobs, can't go in this mile radius without people knowing. The two is so far from one another. How is that explained? My brain just doesn't comprehend it.
Yeah, and I guess my answer to Sophie's question as well, it's not only just, if I take it out of that paedophilia example, for example, you may have people that are murderers or other kind of crimes, and maybe in prison they have reformed themselves or whatever, and I feel like that situation where they may bring people who are previous criminals might be playing a little bit on their vulnerability. Like, that's just the only thing. And the only thing that's coming into my mind is, I don't know if you guys have watched the movie yet, but Judas and the Black Messiah, it's the exact same thing. They picked up this young 17-year-old boy. Obviously, he was into a lot of carjacking and robberies and things like that. And the FBI took him in and they said, okay, we're going to use you to infiltrate into the Black Panthers. And he did that. He infiltrated into the Black Panther organization, I think they're in Chicago. And I don't want to give away the whole movie, but the point was he assisted in taking down that political party and a lot of the people's deaths. And he, at the time, was kind of like, well, I'm apolitical. I don't care about it. Like, I'm not going to go to prison. So they're using me, but I'm using them and I'm getting money, and it was all benefit. But this is based on a real life story, and it plagued him throughout his life, and he ended up committing suicide like when he was 40, and it was all because although, yes, he was a criminal and it made sense that he might be the best person to help them infiltrate this group that wasn't actually a group that needed to be infiltrated in, it was they played on his vulnerability and that plagued him for the rest of his life. So for me, like, in your mind, it might make sense. Like, well, they know the system, they know the streets, they know the lingo, they know how it works. So you should. But I'm with Monah. Like, there's different ways to do it. I'm sure there must be some code of ethics. I know we're dealing with criminals, but to a certain extent, we are still dealing with people. So there has to be some level of ethics where you're not playing on people's vulnerability.
Yeah, that's definitely right. Go on.
I agree with you so much, Anissa, but I just feel like, this is going to be hella controversial, ladies. So bear with me.
No worries, go ahead.
I know some people who are police officers, and the way that they look at criminals is not like, this is a person who's been misled, this is someone who needs reforming. They don't look at them like that. They're kind of like, they're a criminal, we're going to bring them down. And there is no, from what I've seen, like, they're kind of like, I had to punch this guy out, and everyone's like, yeah, bro, you did it, bro. It's that kind of thing, and that's a fact. But I ain't naming no names because I'm not gonna make up liable or anything like that. But if they're not looking at these criminals as people who should have a second chance in life, people who have taken the wrong road and need someone to guide them back onto the right path and have rehabilitation, it's much easier for them, like you were saying in Juice and the Black Messiah, which is a great film, to manipulate someone who they feel like, they're a criminal. If this person gets caught up or killed or whatever, it's no great loss to society. Because I feel like some of that kind of comes in. They don't want to, and they're going to allow that person to do whatever it needs to take. It's kind of like, that's them. It's not us. We're getting the job done. We've kept our hands clean. But I'm just like, it's always somebody else's child though, right? That they're going to hurt.
Yes.
Because if it was your child, you wouldn't think it was all right for them to be waterboarded in order to get information. But, we brought down the drug cartel, so it was all worth it. You're not going to think that. It's because it's people who are removed from us when we can do things and justify things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is one of the reasons why I don't agree with the bill being passed about police being able to kill and stuff, because some police officers are really dodgy. Let's not act like there's not dirty cops out there. They are, and they have sinister intentions, and they like to benefit off the power of being a police officer. Some police officers are actually real PRICKS. And I feel like giving them this power is not going to be good.
Do you know, it's so true, but do you know, I feel we're probably going to end ladies, but there is something that I want to say that might throw a spanner in the works right at the end, because they said that the majority of terrorist attacks that have been prevented in the past few years has been down to these undercover agents. They're like the ones that have been thwarted have been because they've put people undercover. Who knows what they've been up to, but they've managed to keep the society safe. So does that change the way we look at it, considering they are actually saving thousands of people's lives, or do we still feel strongly like, nah?
It depends on what who. Yeah, that's that. I'm with Monah. It depends on what cost. If this is somebody where, I hate to say it, like, it's a fairer trade-off, or they're not doing anything that is going to cause harm to themselves later on, then maybe, but like, it depends on what cost. I'm with Monah on that.
I'd like to see people go on.
Oh, go ahead. Oh,
no, I'd like to see people pay for their crimes and not just be murdered off. So hopefully, people get the chance to go through the justice system. So if people do find people undercover, just arrest them and go through the procedures, opposed to killing them, torturing them, and then causing a lot of distress. I'd like to see, the justice system actually performing. So instead of just having undercover police and then no one hears about it.
Well said. Well, that was our thoughts on today's topic. Thank you so much for watching and listening to Ethnically Speaking. Let's keep the conversation going. Are the UK's new laws justified, or are they leading us to a dangerous place as a society? Let us know in the comments below. And for a summary of everything we've discussed today, head over to unitedmelaningroup.com/ES055. There's a link in the description below. And if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to comment, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. We'll see you on Monday, where we'll be talking all about the true meaning of freedom of speech. And until then, wear your mask, wash your hands, stay safe, and stay alert.